So my goal is to affect the heart. And if that's truly my goal, then everything else is sort of secondary. Like, been nominated for some Junos, super cool. Have played in front of tens of thousands of people at times. And I, I've been moved more by playing for a room of 30 people than I have for playing for 10,000, 20,000 people. Like, I personally felt like this spiritual moment of like, this is why I'm here with, 25, 30 people in a room. And it feels magical. I mean, it's also pretty cool to play for 10,000 people, but it's a little bit different because that the guy who wants to affect the heart, I think, needs that connection piece. And it's hard to connect when you're standing in an arena and there's 10,000 people and it's kind of chaotic, really, and it's fun, but it's a bit harder to connect in that heart to heart kind of way.
Hello, everybody. This is the Winning in Winnipeg podcast, where I talk to top performing business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, and local Winnipeg celebrities. I get to learn who they are and how they think, and I get to hear their perspective about what's really going on in Winnipeg and in their businesses. Today, we have a guest who has carved his own unique path in the world of music, capturing the hearts of Manitobans and Canadians alike. Hailing from the heart of Winnipeg, Don Amero, a celebrated country and folk singer-songwriter, joins us for an inspiring conversation. Don Amero has not only crafted a unique sound, but has also used his platform to share his cultural heritage and inspire positivity. Join us as we learn about his creative process, his insights into the evolving music industry, and the role of Winnipeg in his life and music career. Get ready to be inspired by an exceptional artist who embodies the spirit of our city. Don, great to finally have you on the show.
Sounds pretty good. Thanks. Yeah.
The first time I saw you was your Christmas concert.
Oh, okay.
And I had never really discovered you yet.
What year was that? Like recently, in the last year or two?
That was when I was still cool, when my wife and I could still go out.
Okay.
So I think that was probably, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And really came in without expectation, and you blew my,
That's cool to hear. Thank you. Yeah.
Your voice is incredible.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah.
And that's what I've always really liked. I know that I've always been, we'll say, attracted to musicians that live, their voice, if their voice is crisp and like, oh.
Yeah, I would echo that too. I mean, I'm drawn more to a voice that moves me than a lyric.
Right.
Which, shame on me. There's a lot of songwriters in my world that I say that to, and they, it's an insult. But I think if the voice, like half the time, I'm not even really listening to the lyric. I'm listening to what is the voice doing to me. And so for me, I feel like there's something in the tone, the timbre. I don't know, that like a Chris Stapleton, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. I hear a Stapleton singer, or Teddy Swims. I don't know if you know Teddy Swims. Mind-blowingly, incredibly rich vocal from guys like that. I hear that, and they could sing the phone book to me, and I'll be in tears. Right.
That's
so
right.
it's like when you hear voices like that. So I've always aspired for that kind of thing.
Yeah. My wife always will be listening to, I'll say, honey, you got to listen to this, or it's something that I'm deep into.
Right.
And then she'll listen to it. She'll be like, this is a horrible song. Like, have you listened to the word? Like, this is about a married couple breaking up. And I'm like, I had no idea.
You're like, here's this song. You really need to hear this song.
Yeah.
It's about a breakup.
That's right. Like a Bon Iver or something like that, where you're just like, you get taken away in it kind of thing. Yeah.
Totally.
So, I'd love to hear about your journey, really. I mean, growing up in Winnipeg and, becoming such a fantastic country and folk singer. So what are some key moments growing up that you think influenced you? Yeah.
I mean, I grew up here in the north end of Winnipeg, pretty high poverty rates. We were pretty poor family, pretty kind of all over the place family. Really, we were moving, I kid you not, it seemed like twice a year for 10, 12 years. Like we moved a lot. And part of that was we'd sort of stay in one place, and then eventually my folks couldn't pay the rent anymore, and we'd get evicted or moved out to the next place. And we were constantly on the move, but it was always like to the next low income housing, wherever we could go and stay. And I saw brokenness all around me, and it was just like, it was heartbreaking. And at the same time, I think strength making, like it makes you a stronger person. You don't wish it upon anybody, but when it happens, when you go through that, it's, I think it refines you in a way. It's, shouting out to my podcast when I say this, but it's like a fire that I went through that refined me to become this sort of steelish person who can, like, with things that I've been through, I can kind of handle a bit more because of that kind of upbringing. And that's not to say everybody has to go through that to be stronger, but that was a big thing for me. But however, musically speaking, my dad, he's from Nova Scotia. He's East Coast guy. So when he moved to Winnipeg and met my mom, he brought sort of the East Coast kitchen party feel to our house. And so every payday, so every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever, those weekends would be like having 5 or 6 friends over, and they would just sing. They would just play songs and a lot of beer, but they would be hanging out. And it was beautiful because there was no exchange of money. Nobody was buying a ticket to come to the house to see dad play or mom sing. It was literally just playing for the passion of music and because they loved it so much. And I grew up seeing that love of music in my folks. And so I think I come by it quite honestly. And then, when I was 15, I picked up my dad's Gibson Hummingbird guitar and kind of just, started to dabble way back then. Yeah.
So what was that like, at 15, kind of being the friend that was the singer?
It's interesting because I remember at that season of my life when I was 15, my parents were already divorced. It was real nasty, a real ugly divorce. My mom got involved with somebody incredibly toxic and abusive to her. And as a child of that, you suffer seeing your parents go through this brokenness. My dad was suicidal for a little while. It was really, really challenging. And I remember looking around my neighborhood, and I share this story quite often from the stage too, and that I'd see around me my friends and peers who were struggling with the same kind of brokenness in their homes. And they would dive into drugs or alcohol or gang life or whatever. And I could see the big picture and go, those are just paths of destruction. They're going to ruin their lives. They're going to perpetuate whatever they've seen in their home and continue on the broken cycle. And I just remember saying to myself at a young age, like, I want to push myself into something that is going to be life building, life giving, as opposed to life taking. And so I found music and sports, and those are the two things I kind of really poured myself. I was terrible in school, but music and sports, I really kind of went for it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I kind of dedicated myself to, and it became my therapy. And so when I was 15 and I picked up my dad's old Gibson Hummingbird guitar, I struck an E minor chord, which is like the saddest of all chords, and it felt like my life. And so I wasn't good enough to play anything else. So I immediately learned a couple of chords, mainly minory and heavy and kind of, you mentioned Bon Iver, like that sort of really deep stuff, and it was resonating with me. And so I just started writing and just started creating my own songs. And again, they're probably pretty terrible back then, but it was a release and it was therapy. And that's where it began for me.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when you ask about being the friend who was the musician, I kept it quiet for a long time. Like, nobody knew I could play, or that I was writing songs for probably 5 years into kind of dabbling with it. Partly because I was just like, I don't know if I got anything worth sharing here. It was just like, again, it was a for me thing that I think I dreamt about possibly taking it somewhere, but I just was like, I don't have all the skills needed to do that. It was just like, I'm playing for the passion, like my folks,
Yeah. Why do you think that you were so aware kind of what you were experiencing and how you're dealing versus your friends or people you saw?
I think that was a gift, honestly, that I, given by the divine of some sort, that sort of, I was bestowed unto me to look at life like a big map. And as a young teenager, young man, kind of like looking at my life like a map, going, here's the destination I want to end up in. And I want to take the road of least resistance to get there. And for me, I couldn't have articulated it quite the same way at 15, I know, but looking back, that was my thinking was, I know where I want to end up. I want to be healthy, successful, strong, smart, and I want to take whatever path gets me there. And everything else that was, I've had pitfalls, and I had at certain times in my life had dabbled a little bit with weed and smoking and drinking, but I very quickly realized these were not things that were going to be the life-giving journey to where I want to end up. They were going to just take away from me. And so I didn't really dabble with them any more than just like most teenagers would, and I just, I still enjoy a beer now and again, but other than that, like it's really, I've never gone the way that my friends have, and some of that respect when it comes to dealing with the pain that we go through.
Yeah. So in speaking of pain and feelings, and so your story writing and the way that you create music, Take me through kind of, how Winnipeg and Manitoba has really been, has it helped shape the way you storytell or, write music?
Yeah. I mean, growing up the way that I did and, sort of finding my identity as an Indigenous man later in life too, like in my young adult life, I didn't make that connection when I was younger. I think for me, being, from here has been a big reason why I've been so successful is because, a lot of people will from let's say from here in Winnipeg, will go to Toronto or go to Nashville or go to LA or Vancouver and try to make it. Yeah. And I've always thought like, why are you going to go to like these places that have millions of people? And here we have less than 1 million. You can make waves here, stay here, make waves. And then if the wave ripples far enough, they'll catch it. And then you can jump over into Toronto where we've got some pretty successful musicians here in town who have done incredibly well. And then they go off and then only to come back here home and in a year or two going, it was much easier trying to make it here. Cause I mean, cost of living is hard anywhere, but it's really hard in Toronto, Vancouver, any of those places I mentioned. Right. So it's like, you can actually, in my opinion, and this is to any aspiring artists out there, is you can have a decently respectful and profitable career right here in Winnipeg and make it work without having to leave. And I love Winnipeg. Like I hate when people slag Winnipeg. Like Winnipeg has its charms. Yeah, it struggles too, but it's charms. And I love all the charms of this place. And I will always be a Winnipegger. I don't think there's any part of my journey that will see me not having Winnipeg be my home. Yeah.
So what is it about Winnipeg? What are some of the things that you love about Winnipeg? And what are some of the things that you think that you'd like to see change?
I love Winnipeg because again, growing up I keep going back to where I grew up, but like it had this sense for me growing up where I did of we don't have much, but we've got each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that stayed with me, and I now live in Transcona, and I've been there for about 8 years. I lived in St. Boniface prior to that, but up until I was, 18 years old, I lived in the North End. And there's this spirit of like, we don't have much, but we got each other. And I think that is almost the Winnipeg vibe. That's what I would say. We got the friendly Winnipeg license plate thing. And I felt like that's what I love about this place is it feels like a small community in a big city. That's what I love about this place. I mean, in terms of places, the Forks is one of the coolest spots, I think, in Canada, like in terms of hangout spots and places to be and just sort of be present. And there's so much rich millennia of history there that I feel like, and I feel that when I go there. And so there's a richness to that place. I honestly, I feel like my roots go deep here, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
So you've had some incredible moments in your music career. Are there some that kind of stick out and that have left a mark on you?
Yeah, it's funny. Like it sounds like I'm patting myself on the back in a big way here when I say this, but it's never been about awards. It's never been about a paycheck. It's never been about a stage. People say, "Oh, wouldn't it be so cool to play this or that stage?" And I'm like, I guess so. But like to me, when I started this journey as a full-time musician, it was like I wanted to affect the heart. My goal, my ambition is to anybody who's listening that they would be moved in a happier, healthier direction, that music is medicine, right? And so my goal is to affect the heart. And if that's truly my goal, then everything else is sort of secondary. Like been nominated for some Junos, super cool. Have played in front of tens of thousands of people at times. And I've been moved more by playing for a room of 30 people than I have for playing for 10,000, 20,000 people. I personally felt like this spiritual moment of like, this is why I'm here with 25, 30 people in a room. And it feels magical. It's also pretty cool to play for 10,000 people, but it's a little bit different because that the guy who wants to affect the heart, I think, needs that connection piece. And it's hard to connect when you're standing in an arena and there's 10,000 people and it's kind of chaotic really. And it's fun, but it's a bit harder to connect in that heart to heart kind of way. So,
right.
But yeah, if I'm talking about the highlights for me, it's the Junos are cool. The Juno nominations, I never won, but the nominations are cool. And some of the award wins over the years, but the highlights for me are when people say to me, hey, that song you sang last night, or that thing you shared on stage really, really affected me and shed some light in a dark place in my heart. And that's beautiful. That's vision coming to reality, and that for me is what I do this for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that, when you were on stage, one, it was extremely authentic. Like it just, when you can kind of sniff out bullshit. One, you were authentic. Two, your storytelling ability and the way that you communicate, your ideas and your feelings were just like it was very impressive. Is that something that just came as a gift? Was it something that you actively had to practice and work at?
Well, here's the truth. So people ask me, you nervous about going out there? I'm never nervous about singing. I'm never nervous about getting up there and playing with the band. I'm nervous about the in-between stuff. It's like, whatever, if I've got something valuable to say, I hope that whatever I'm sharing is impactful. And so I get a bit nervous about those moments. But for me, it's really about being intentional. And so I think it's a practiced art. I don't think I had it from the beginning. When I first started performing and playing, I used to have a music stand and I'd kind of hide behind it and I'd peek around, kind of see if anybody's listening. And then over the years, like I'd say about a year into it, I'd lower the music stand, and then eventually no music stand. And then finally, like, I had this realization a couple years ago. It's like, get out of the song's way. If a song exists, it's really like there's a moment that I've got a bunch of songs that are probably just for me. They'll never see the light of day in the public world. But there are some songs that I've written, I think, again, out of this attitude of service to others, service to the listener, that if my fears, anxieties, and whatever inequities, whatever, get in the way of the song fully living in that moment, then the person that needs it is not going to be able to fully receive it the way they need to, if that makes sense. So I've practiced like just getting out of my own way, if that makes sense. So that's a big thing for me, is like, just sing the song with everything you got. And sometimes it means singing the song with everything you got doesn't mean it has to be perfect. It just means like because people will feel, I think, the heart and soul behind it, whether it's perfect or not.
Like getting out of your own head and just letting it go.
Just let it be. And so yeah, I think in terms of the connecting piece, that's something that I've practiced to get to where it's at now. And I think, like anything, when with practice, it's like riding a bike, and you can and you also see the value in it. I think for me, I felt the shift of a room when people start to believe in what you're sharing, and they go, oh, wait a second, I believe in the magic of this, and especially with Christmas, right? Like Christmas is a big one where people are a little more open to magic than ever before, and hearts come soft at Christmas, I find. And so there's this feeling of, that's why I love this Christmas show so much, is because there's this element of like, people come with this feeling of expectation, probably differently than they would any other show.
Or a little more open.
Right? A little more open to it. Yeah. So it's, I'm really excited. Actually, it's funny, as we're talking right now, I'm literally in the midst of like, I've been listening to Christmas music for 2 months, and we start practice tomorrow night. So rehearsal start tomorrow night.
You and my wife both.
Yes, it's begun.
So putting together a Christmas special, putting together, shows that you would, what's that like? What is it? How much work goes into those?
Well, I rely heavily on the gifts of others to pull the show off in the way that it looks and feels. Is, I feel confident as a player, I feel confident as a singer, but I think all the magic is in all the pieces coming together. I've got a great band. I hire a great lighting crew to come in. I hire my own sound tech. I have a stage monitor tech. So it's quite a crew of us. Like there's probably 15 of us in the end that are all involved in putting this thing together. So I also hire a musical director. I can't speak the language of music. I can hear music, but I can't tell you. I can't read music. I can read chord charts, but that's about it. Like there's also a thing called the Nashville number system. I can't do that either. So these musicians are all pros that I work with that all speak that language. So I hire somebody to be the musical directors of most of the shows that I do throughout the year. And I hand usually guitar players or piano players or bass players. And I'll say, can you musical direct this show? They get paid a little bit more because they're carrying a bit more of the load. But again, it's their gifts that I'm relying on to enhance the show in the big way. And but yeah, it's a lot of planning. And the bigger plan, again, is the space in between. I remember I said to the band 2 years ago, I said, look, you are all such pros at what you do. I have no doubt that you're going to play amazingly. I said, but when it comes to the song ending and there's a space, let's embrace the space. That's just, if we embrace the quiet moments, I have a feeling the audience will also like settle in a bit more. And when I said that, I think we like a light bulb went off for all of us. And the show felt like this other level. We've tapped into this other level of magic for us all. And it just felt like more peace than ever before. It wasn't like go. Okay. You feel like the stress of a performance like that. Mm-hmm. It felt so effortless and kind of just flowed so sweetly, if I can say that. And so we've tried to keep that sort of mentality going every year. And I, as the leader of this thing, I feel like it's really up to me to be the, rally the troops and make sure everybody's on the same page. And, the hands in moment where everybody, we do that, and get everybody, and we have a little pep talk before we go out. So all that stuff I think adds up to, I want everybody to get on stage with the same heart of like, we're here to serve. We're here to bring the best of ourselves and really just allow the audience to hopefully lose some of the weight that they came in with. If that, what I mean by that is the weight of the world, right? Yeah. Like so that when you leave, you feel like you can. I probably even say this from the stage that we want you to feel like you're floating a little bit tonight when you leave. Yeah. And that's the hope. Yeah.
What makes a good show versus a not so good? I won't say bad show, but a not so good. Like, is it from your side or do you find that it could be from the audience side as well? Okay,
that's a good point. Actually, I had a thought when you said that, but I think it is a good show is when there's this reciprocated energy. When you come bringing everything you have, and the audience is you're giving it back, and you give and get. It's happening. Yeah. And it's not even just about the applause. It's just about there's like a spiritual thing that happens almost where and an energy that happens between you and the audience that you feel like a wave of something coming over you. Like I've been in rooms where you're trying so hard to do the thing and it just is not connecting and you're like, why isn't this working? But the great shows, and maybe that's why the shows with 30 people feel so magical, because you've got 30 people intently hanging on every word that you share in stories and in song. Those feel really powerful because there's a connection happening and there's this feeling of you both know that you're here for one night only for this magical element. And I think that having that kind of moment is big. The other thing I was going to say is for me, I'm a musician, I'm a singer-songwriter, but with the big shows like that, it's about being a great entertainer. And so it's a little bit like the front person, whoever you're going to see, is the conductor of your evening. And if they are really good at their job, then I think majority of the people there will feel like that was a really great show, the band and the audience.
Yeah. I remember seeing Kings of Leon when they came. Kings of Leon, I mean, they got a great sound and they had a meteoric rise, right? Like it was just insane.
Yeah.
And I listened to them for a long time, like way back in the day, like they're, when Milk was, no one had ever heard of that.
Right.
I saw them live and it just turned me off.
Really, eh?
They didn't connect. They didn't talk to the audience. They came out, played really quick and then gone.
I wonder why that is. Like, I think sometimes like for artists and bands and big shows like that, it's a bit like I don't know, you're checking a box. You're like, I did the thing, I'm leaving. Like, yeah. And I do wonder sometimes, a lot of musicians maybe don't ask them, a lot of people probably don't ask themselves the question, the why of what they do. Like people know what they want to do, but when it gets down to the why, like it always bothers me when I hear artists say, oh, I just want to win that Juno, or I just want to get that, Grammy nomination. Mm-hmm. Then it's like, but then what? Like that can't be the bar, because like there's more to it than that, because what happens when you win it? Like how many times have I seen dusty old Junos in places and go, that's cool. You won that. Yeah. 5-6 years ago. But like, not that nobody cares, I wouldn't want to put that out there as that, but like, there's got to be more to it than that. And so it's really about knowing your why. And like, what I'm trying to get across for me is it's about an attitude of service and how do I help people with what I offer as a musician. And so that's why I can play between 500, it doesn't matter to me. Like if you're willing to listen, then I think that's a beautiful gift for me to have listening ears. So yeah.
Who are some of the artists that have played, that you've either seen or that have played a big impact in your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. The first big concert I ever went to was Kiss. That's the first show I ever went to. Probably like 1999.
That's a good
Yeah.
first show. Hey,
It was. I mean, I wasn't even a big rock guy, but like my friend got tickets, and I was like, I don't know any Kiss songs. I knew like 90% of their repertoire. I had no idea I knew all these Kiss songs.
Yep.
But I was like, holy smokes, that's like, because I mean, that's one of the biggest shows on the planet. Like seeing what they can do, and so you realize, oh, me singing in front of a mic stand or a music stand is pretty lame compared to what you can do. And so I think that's all sort of influenced me in some of the direction I would like to go with I mean, clearly there's no big flames or, I'm not flying across yet.
Fiery Christmas.
I haven't done that yet, but I absorb some of those elements of like, okay, it's more than just the song. It's the entertainment value of this. That was kind of a cool first show. U2 has inspired me. I think because U2, I remember I saw them, I want to say 10, 12-ish years ago. They came through town here and they played the arena, the old stadium. Oh yeah. And it was outside venue, and they had this big, huge stage. And it was just really different. And I was like, these guys take chances. I mean, they're U2. I mean, they had, by 2000, whatever, they were already the icons of rock, right? So they could kind of take whatever chance they wanted. But I was just like, okay, like, how do I scale that to what I can do, right? And so I've lived most of my music career being a chance taker, because it's like, look, I might not work out, but like I want to try stuff and just go for it, And so that's been a big one. And the other, like lately, it's been like Blue Rodeo was another one. I was going to say, a great Canadian band, just because I love their energy and how they're really just like the bunch of dudes you'd hang out with, kind of feel. Yep. But lately it's been like, again, I mentioned Chris Stapleton earlier, a guy named Patrick Droney's been inspiring me musically. So it's a little bit all over the map. I grew up with like Lionel Richie, Elton John, and CCR. My dad would play all kinds of records. And so it all sort of fed into this love of all kinds of music for me, for sure. Yeah.
I don't think I actually admitted what my musical tastes were until, not openly, until I met my wife.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And then a lot of that was like, oh, no way, you like that too? Or like, I grew up, and my dad he loved all the divas. Like, I remember waking up Saturday morning to like Celine Dion and Gloria Estefan. And, awesome. Oh yeah, it was so funny. And listening to like opera and Phantom of the Opera, and all just so eclectic everywhere.
Is your dad still with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is he still
my dad was a drummer, and my dad was my dad and my little. I've got four brothers. There's 5 boys.
Oh man,
my little brother was the only one that kind of picked up what my dad has. Okay. And my dad can pick up any instrument and play it.
Okay.
And my little brother can too, which is really weird. Like, he'll pick up an oboe and start playing it. Like, you're just like, what is that? And all of us were very musical and very similar to what you were saying before. Like, I was doing I remember my grade 8 piano.
Okay.
And I couldn't really read sheet music very well. Okay. Like, I was all ear. I would lose myself in just the song
and the feel.
That's right. Yeah. Like, that's how I was able to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about your songwriting process. Are you somebody that, like, how do you write? Do you see it? Do you hear it? Do the words come up? Is it the melody? Like,
it's a lot of different varying ways that I do it now. When I first started, it was literally like stuff would be going on in my life, and I'm thinking, early like teenager Don. Yeah. And I would just start writing my feelings down, like I like this girl and I wish she would date me, kind of like idea. Yep. And some of it was like pain songs, like I'm going through hell right now and I don't know how to deal with it. Like I would literally just write down almost like a journal, and I would sing the journal, right? And it was, again, probably not a great song, but it was releasing for me. So that's how I started. And now it's more like I write out of response to what's going on. I've always guessed I've done that. But how I do it now is like I voice notes, voice memos, and I do a lot of co-writing. So I like sitting in a room with other writers who because when you write by yourself, not that you can't write good songs by yourself, I think you absolutely can, but it's incubated thought. So the story makes sense in your mind. But when you've got other writers in the room and you say, here's the story, they go, okay, cool. But how do we refine that a bit so that it makes more sense for everybody to hear, right? Because how many songs have I written that I feel like I get, but maybe to the listener, it's a little more abstract. So writing with other writers helps you refine that a bit and again, be able to tighten the story up. So it's a really, a much stronger song for a multitude of listeners. Yeah.
So in writing with and having others, inclusive of that, what are some of the collaborations that I know that you've done some cool collaborations. What are some that kind of stick out?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of great Canadian writers that I wrote with a couple of times. Patricia Conroy, she's a great Canadian girl, and then Dwave. Her and Dwave write a lot. So Dwave his name's Dave Thompson. I always call him Dwave. He was in a band called Wave. You would know the song, going to California, gonna live the life, sipping on tequila night after night. So he was the one that wrote that song back in, it came out in 2000. And I didn't make this connection. I was up on stage with him at a song circle thing, and we're all sharing songs, and he starts playing the song. I was like, oh, you're doing a cover song? He's like, no, it's my song. I was like, what? And so I've gone down to Nashville a couple of times and I've gotten a chance to work with them. And here's I should be careful because I love Patricia, but first time I ever wrote with Patricia, it was really hard. I did not enjoy it, partly because Patricia had an idea for a song. She walked in and she was like, I got a song, guys. And it was my first time meeting her. And so she brought this idea and we chased it, but I was like, this is not a song for me. We didn't even really get a chance to connect. It was like immediately launched into a song. And I was like, okay, maybe they do it differently down here in Nashville. And so but next time I wrote with her, it was really a good connection and we kind of knew each other by then and she knew what I was about. So we've written a couple of times. I've written with, or I didn't write, I collaborated. I got a song sent to me by Gordie Sampson, Tog Salter, Simon Wilcox, and Charles Kelly. Charles Kelly's in the band Lady A.
Okay.
And so they sent me the song called You Can't Always Be 21, an incredible song. I think it should have been a hit. But it was, they sent it to me and we put it out, loved it. I wrote all the writers and I said, hey, thanks so much. And the one I thought I wouldn't hear back from was Charles Kelly, who is, this international star. He's the only one that got back to me. And I said, hey, cool, man, thanks so much for this song. And we started chatting back and forth a bit on email. And then he sent me a bunch of other songs. And so every once in a while, I kind of catch up with him and say, hey, here's what I've got going on. And it hasn't led to any sort of Don opening up for Lady A events yet. But, it's kind of a cool connection into the upper echelon of the country music world that is kind of cool to have my foot in the door there.
Yeah. How do you find that most, I shouldn't say most musicians, because everyone's different, but, in, let's say, my industry, locally, people are quite close. Like, nobody really talks. Right. It's competition.
Yeah.
How do you find that in the music industry?
It's interesting because it's changing annually. It feels these days, right? Like I came up in a time when CDs were still a thing, and obviously the digital age has brought us into a new era of people making hardly any money off of the sales of their music, and so the ability to get out there and be a musician is easier than ever before, I think, in terms of getting your music to market. But the competition is stiffer than ever. It just means that everybody and their dog can create an album, and put it out there. And so it's the competition is intense, but in terms of the community that I've kind of rolled with and here in Winnipeg and beyond, and particularly in the country music scene, everybody knows each other. And we've all known, be good to the people that you're on your way up because they're the same people you meet on the way down as they're coming up, right? So it's really just, I think most of us, abide by that school of thought. That being said, there are a few wieners out there that, always, that you kind of have to kind of sort through, and you decide we're just acquaintances or we're friends or whatever. And, I'm trying to think there's definitely a lot of good people in the scene that I interact with, and clearly if I don't jive, I'm not obligated to have to hang. So I the circle that I roll with, I feel is pretty pretty intelligently, sweetly connected. Yeah. If that makes sense.
So being aware of yourself at a very young age, how has your circle kind of changed? Has I realize that as I age and I get older, my circle shrinks. You know, like the people that I connect with and my values and what I care about and everything like that. You know,
it's funny you asked that because I'm going through something now. I'm 43 now. So I'm I'm at this place where it's like, okay, I've built this career and, you know, like it took a lot of like, to be successful in music, you're all in or nothing. Right. And so I spent the first 10 years of this career, just like every time the phone rang, anytime I got called to go somewhere, it was like, I was doing everything. And it got in the last couple of years. I mean, I've gotten to the point now where it's like I can say no a bit more than I ever used to. So, because for me, at this age, I've got 3 kids. I now am like, what's really important, and really to me, it's connecting with the people that I love, and that's my wife, my kids, my friend circle. I think absolutely. Like, it was never to like in the business world. I try to amass as many people as I can to, you know, be into what I'm doing.
Yep.
But in my personal life, I've got a small circle of friends that we got this one group of guys we call our bros and brews.
Okay.
So we hang out, we do hot tub hangs and stuff like that once in a while. And we just, you know, drink a beer and catch up on life and, you know, try to walk with each other through the muck of life, you know? And I love that group of guys. Like there's 5 or 6 of us and that's all I need. You know, I don't need a massive group of friends. I got these guys that are my brothers that we try to sharpen each other and steer each other in a good direction if we can. And but it is interesting, right? Because like as a public figure, a lot of people feel really close to what I'm doing because they've been affected by the music that I put out there, and I love that. But at the same time, I've had to learn I can't be the answer for everybody, and you know I'm also at times lost. So it's like I've got this core group of guys that I can go and sit with. Outside of that, I have to navigate the greater community to some extent and figure out who, you know, where my energy could be spent, you know, and should be spent.
Well, I imagine being a musician and, you know, and celebrity, right? That it may sometimes be a very unbalanced relationship where people may feel like they know you and they've listened to you and connected with you, and then you know you meet them for the first time and it's a totally unbalanced.
Yeah, well, it is funny. There's somebody that reached out to me recently, said, "Hey, could you come with me to this event?" And I was like, "No, I can't." And I was just like you know, and I'm not a jerk about it. I just said, "I'm sorry, it doesn't really work for me. I got my family and that, you know, and stuff." And I think they were genuinely just like being like, "Hey, would Don Amero come to this event?" And I was like, "No, I got my family." Well, can I come with your family? I was like, that's a line crossed, like, you know. And so that occasionally happens, and I felt like I've navigated it fairly respectfully and in the right ways. I probably engage too much at times, though. I think people in my life go, you don't have to answer to everybody. Yeah. But then, again, being the connector, being the guy that wants to affect the heart, I feel like if somebody's taking the time to reach out, I don't respond to every comment, but pretty much every message that comes through, I take the time to say, you know, if it's directly to me, then I take the time to respond there, because I feel like
that's great.
That's a good personal thing for me. So
absolutely, yeah. The business of music. Take me through how, you know, there's a balance of how much energy and focus you're putting on your craft, and then there's also how do you build your brand? I'm sure that it was different when you started than now, right? With social. So take me through that. You know, what are your thoughts on, you know, how you've been marketing, or how you look at, you know, how to create and get your message across about you as a business versus just connecting with music? Yeah.
I mean, it's again, I think that's another area that's trickier than ever, because there's this like massive beast called social media that consumes us.
Yeah.
And I've been consumed by it from time to time. And you know, as a father, I have to think, how do I want my kids to engage in the world that they will one day inherit from me? And they're going to learn that from the way that I behave in it, right? And either one way or the other, they're going to go, I want to be like my dad, or I don't want to be like my dad at all, right?
Yep.
They're somewhere in the middle, probably. And so I think quite often about this beast of social media, and it's a necessary thing. It's a necessary to have to do all the things there. I kind of hate it. I wish I loved the old days in a way, you know, where it was like, if you were good and you connected with the audience, then you'd get to the next level. Mm-hmm. But again, like I said earlier, the playing field is leveled a lot more than ever, where everybody can release music and put it out and have a, you know, there's I've said this, I think there's more middle class musicians now than ever before, which I think is a good thing. It means that a lot more of us can survive and thrive. I think the star system is not awesome. I think having stars, I think every business has its stars in a way, right? I think so they'll always be there, but I think the idea that we need to become a star, that thought needs to be broken down and say, look, you don't get to decide that. Like I think the healthiest way to think this is, you have something and you want to offer it. You can't control the outcome of the reception of whatever it is that you're creating, but if you can put your best stuff together and put that out there, and go to bed at night feeling happy that you've put your best foot forward, to me, that's peace. That's success. It's not, I can't control the outcome. I can't control the response. I try my best to deliver something that I feel content with, but that's a big question. I feel like I'm kind of going all around it, but I think for me, it's something I know at this stage, I definitely wrestle with, because I don't fully, I've got a great team around me. Got a great manager, got a great label company that I work with. But even then, like, having a great team doesn't necessarily guarantee more success. It's a struggle these days, I think, to know exactly where to invest your time. Yep. I've recently, this is, news from Don Amero here. I recently started thinking I need to spend more time creating and less time being consumed by social media. And so my plan, I'm letting you in on my top secret here. My plan is 1 day a week, do social content creation. Mm-hmm. Again, because I think it's the way business is moving now. And then the rest of the week is like, sometimes it's emails, sometimes it's connecting with people. But the thing is just to play music again and get more back behind my guitar. Yeah. And just writing for the sake of music and loving it. I really feel like I'm missing that piece of my life. Like you'd think I play every day. I play barely at all. I play when I have concerts. I play sort of in rehearsals, getting ready for concerts. But there's sometimes when a week or two will go by and I haven't picked up my guitar, which feels really strange to be a musician and not being playing my music. So I think I'm in the middle of rectifying that right now. So yeah, that's the long answer to that question, which I don't know if I landed anywhere, but
it's very fair. Like it's, I remember having the conversation with a business coach of mine, and they were talking about being a creator versus a consumer. And social media is just this massive double-edged sword, right? Yeah. It can build you or it can absolutely crucify you.
Totally.
And I think you absolutely were on point with, how those around us, especially our kids, mm-hmm. how they see you interacting with it, whether, what messaging you're putting across there, even your consumption rates, mm-hmm. stuff like that is huge. How old are your kids?
They're 11, 8, and 4. And so I've said this, I think cell phone use is like cigarettes, alcohol, and swearing for me growing up. Mm-hmm. My parents they say, don't swear, don't smoke, don't drink. Yeah. And they would do all those things.
Right.
So we tell our kids, stay off your screens. We don't want you on the screens all the time. But all they can see is us being on screens all the time. So it's like, wait a second. I know this story. I know how this plays out. I hope and I believe that the next generation will, like we didn't grow up with cell phones as kids, right? So I think our kids are growing up only ever knowing that existed. It's like when I was your age kind of talk. Like we had to dial, on a rotary phones and things like that, right? Like
zero took forever.
And so I think the kids are going to kind of grow up with a healthier connection to these devices. As long as, again, I think it does take some teaching on our part as parents, but yeah, I'm definitely more intentional now than ever before. I've always been pretty good with it. Like I think we've kept our kids away from screens fairly healthily as you know, as they've grown up. But again, I think the healthiest version is for them to see us not being consumed by our cell phones.
Yeah. My little daughter, I think she incepted, like she just totally out thought me. I remember being on it and she's like, Daddy, let's play. And I'm like, honey, I gotta work. And I remember telling her to get off of it one time. She was, what was she doing? I think it was a fake cell phone too that she was on, and I was trying to get her to do something.
She said she was working.
And she goes, no, Dad, I can't, I'm working. And I'm like, oh, a 4-year-old just crushed me.
Just got you, man. Right in the heart.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think you're bang on. Now, stepping kind of sideways here and looking at, your Indigenous heritage, how has that, we talked about how Manitoba and Winnipeg affect, how does, being Indigenous and living within the community, how's that affected how you write? How is it, is that something that, you take on intentionally, or is it just part of who you are?
It's interesting. So my story is quite unique. Like I grew up, again, my dad being from the East Coast, my mom from here. So my dad has East Coast Acadian European descent. Okay. My mom is born and raised here in Manitoba, and she has Cree and Métis descent. Okay. And when I was growing up, they said, "Oh, you're Heinz 57." Which is ketchup, right? So I was like, I guess I'm a lot of things, right? It's kind of what they were saying. And I just was like, I'm just a Canadian. I'm a lot of things. And then when I was 22 or 23, 24, something like that, I can't remember now, but I remember sitting in a concert by fellow Winnipeggers, Steve Bell. And he did a song by Bruce Cockburn called Red Brother, Red Sister. Man, it wrecked me. It blew me away. I was sitting in this church, and I was sitting in a pew, tears rolling down my cheeks, and I was just like, and this song Red Brother, Red Sister talks about the injustices that the Indigenous people of Canada have faced over the years. And I was just like, I want to be part of the changing of this story. I want to make sure that this is not the story moving forward. I want my kids to see a different story, a different narrative. And so right then and there, I decided I'm going to connect more with my Indigenous roots, and I'm going to ask my mom the tough questions about our history, and I want to find out more about this, and I want to be on the front lines of these conversations and be a bridge builder and change the way people engage with Indigenous people in Canada. So it was very intentional for me, and so for me, the music career and the connection to my indigeneity has kind of grown hand in hand. As I was coming up, this is really sort of, again, serendipitous, and my connection to my roots in a way, the door to Indigenous peoples and opportunities also was swinging open. And so I feel like, again, timing worked out for me in a way that I couldn't plan. I think the world was like, again, looking at itself, or Canada was looking at itself, because that's when, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission began. That's when a lot of people were, Canada was confronting its history with Indigenous people right around 2005. And it was really like starting to become an everyday conversation. And I think, again, that opened up the floodgates for a guy like me to come in and really flourish, while we're on the subject, I don't know if you want to get into Buffy St. Marie, but that was a big piece that came out recently about her not being Canadian nor Indigenous. And now I don't want to comment on that necessarily, but what I will say is, and I've often said this, I remember one day I was talking to my friend Alan Grey Eyes in town here, and Alan's a leader in the Indigenous music community, and I said, Alan, you're never mad, you're never angry, you're always like, I've never seen him get pissed off. He's always kind of even keel. And I said, when you were dealing with these big issues sometimes as Indigenous peoples, and how do you do? He says, don't forget, Don, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And I was like, yeah, that's right. Like he says, you have the voice, and you can come in this with this heart of peace because somebody else slammed the table or kicked open a door. Right. And I was like, oh, right. And so when I think about the people that did that, Buffy's one of those people. I mentioned this the other day in the media, and I just said, I'm the guy that stands in the middle of the bridge, and I listen to all sides. And I'm pretty diplomatic about a lot of things, about especially politics and stuff. And I just said, I'm just listening right now. I'm listening to Buffy. I'm listening to the investigations. I'm listening to what's going on. But to me, it doesn't negate the work that Buffy did. Buffy still kicked open doors for a guy like me. I still stand on the platform that she created for a guy like me to stand on and be able to do what I do. So that being said, there's a lot of conversations still to be had about that. But for me, I've benefited greatly by the people that have kicked open doors. And in terms of my Indigenous roots, I feel like it's a part of who I am. And so I'm not super intentional about bringing, because I grew up here in the city, again, with I didn't grow up sort of as a res kid. I grew up with city life, being a Canadian kid. And so for me, I don't have a lot of traditions that I can pull into the music stuff, but I have some collaborations that I've done over the years that I cherish because other people that I connect with can bring some of those elements into the music that I share.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that, you have noticed that are common misconceptions surrounding, Indigenous, whether it's in your industry or just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest, I'm not sure if I'm going to answer this question correctly, but I've never faced a lot of, I would say, I guess, racism. I've never really seen a lot of it myself. I think I present very urban, very, very city kid. And so I think I've been, I say I'm the safe bet because I'm not coming from this life of living in a residential area, like in a reserve. And so I just grew up differently than those that did. So I feel like I've always been very safe and protected. That being said, you have somebody who maybe comes from reserve and comes to move to the city here, and they might have a completely different story about how they feel and how they operate in the world of particularly within music. But one of the things that I was thinking about this today, if this would come up, I think that the hardest thing, that I'm recognizing is the disconnect between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. I think non-Indigenous peoples many of them really want to see Indigenous communities do better. I really want to see Indigenous peoples thriving and being successful. And I think that heart is there. I think what's really lacking though is relationship. I think there's this history of us and them, and the connection piece is what's missing. And I think a lot of the times people are afraid of walking with somebody who's different than them, because if you go down Main Street right now, you're going to see a lot of brokenness, and you're going to see a lot of very, very different lives than the ones that we may be leading. And I think a lot of the times Manitobans are waiting for policies and procedures and programs to be in place to elevate Indigenous peoples that have been suffered in a broken system. I believe that the right way forward is through relationship and connection. And so I wish that more Manitobans, Canadians would make efforts to walk alongside Indigenous peoples I'm saying Indigenous peoples, but even other people, different people. And it's a hard thing to do because when I think a lot of people that have gone to be a support for Indigenous peoples, they get their hands slapped and they go, "Why are you here? You did this to my people back in the day." And I think what happens is people go, "Oh, I tried to help and then I got my hand slapped."
Right.
And I often say is be prepared to have your hand slapped and be willing to say, I get it. I get your pain and I'm here with you. And I'm not looking to change you. I'm not trying to pull you into my way of living. I want you to live the way you want to live, but I want to walk with you to the next chapter of your life, whatever that looks like. And hopefully the road that I walk with you in is a road of healing.
Right.
And that's, I think that could be a massive shift in terms of the narrative of Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in our country. Yeah.
I think that one of the lessons that I've learned is that it's very easy to connect over pain. And I think that, albeit the circumstances are different between Indigenous and non-Indigenous, we all have pain, right? And so I think that we 100% have more things in common than differences, right? Yeah. So I think you're right as far as just finding that connection point and building that relationship. It's just how we get there.
Yeah. I mean, there are programs and things in place in the city. And I think I wonder if more, I'll just talk about Winnipeg. If more Winnipeggers made the effort to connect with those organizations and say, I want to be present and walking with, it's hard because sometimes it feels unsafe and it feels a bit dangerous at times, but I think these places exist. And there's an ability to connect and make those connections with the community if you make the effort. And I think the effort can't just be with your wallet. It has to be with your physical body, being present and to connect with the people. And I don't think the motivation is to fix. I think the motivation should be to connect and love and connect. That's it. And I think that could, again, be a tidal shift of connection here for us in Winnipeg.
Yeah. 2-part question.
Okay.
Totally changing gears. What was the hardest part of starting versus what the hardest part is right now?
I'm assuming you mean jumping into music.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, this was 2007, I was working as a hardwood floor installer, right? So I regular paycheck every 2 weeks, and I knew what was happening. Every day I knew I'd be up at 6 a.m. and I'd be home by 5 p.m. And I knew every 2 weeks I'd get a paycheck. Starting into music, I didn't know if I was going to make $10 that month. It was just like, it was such a, I went through years of, I call them white flag moments of like, maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe this isn't going to be the thing. And just sort of like the stick-to-itiveness of like, I'm going to just keep ahead. Now, I'm always quick to say, like, I had my wife was working 2 jobs so that, and we had no kids at that time. So it was like, and those 2 jobs amounted to maybe a bit more than a full-time job for her. And I was fully immersed into learning the business of music and learning how to play, how to work with other people, how to write, all those things. And so we were both working really hard, only she was making money and I was barely scraping by with gas money. And so for us at the time, we wanted very little. We didn't need a lot. As long as we had a roof over our head and food to eat, we were happy. And I'd say that's still kind of true for us. We don't really want a lot. I mean, if anything, we want savings. We want to make sure we can, thinking about our future 20 years from now. So that was the hard thing, is just like the question marks of like, will this work? Is this going to work? Some of those questions still exist today. But I think now, what is it? I have no doubt I will do this for the rest of my life. No doubt. It might look and feel differently from year to year, which I think it should. I think you need to evolve. And the evolution of something doesn't always mean more. That's right. Doesn't mean I'll have more opportunities or more money. It just means like it'll change and evolve as I grow. I look to guys like Fred Penner, who I've been friends with now for a few years. And I look at his path and his journey and I go, that's a sweet opportunity, sweet thing he's done. Tom Jackson, the actor, Indigenous performer, he was another mentor of mine early on. And he said, diversify, do all the things that you're passionate about. Don't just be a musician. And I was like, okay. And so I've done that. I've got a children's book now. I wish I'd brought you one. I didn't know you had
kids. Really?
Yeah. I wrote a children's book that came out last year. I have a podcast that I run called Through the Fire. Okay. Still pretty green, still trying to figure it out. It's not quite this setup yet, but I feel, I'm onto something. Yeah. And I feel like for me, just being open to the possibilities of the future. But I think, for me, it's like, I guess what the hard parts now is like, again, making sure that whatever I bring to the table is of value to me and hopefully to the receiver, whether it's the book, podcast, music, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think that's key, is figuring out what you want to wake up and do, and something that really pushes you forward. Like it could be, a CFA might really get energetic by looking at spreadsheets, right? And that's cool, good for them, right? Find out what you want. I wish that was I could honestly say that was something that I had figured out, but I think that is really one of the magic keys to, especially during the tough times and the white flag moments of questioning your career choice.
I have a theory. So I did 2 years ago, I did a whole series of, it was called Concerts in Care. I think I did 25 care homes in Manitoba.
Okay.
And I was playing, and I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, care homes, that's gonna be awesome. You get 3 square meals a day, you get to just chill out, you're just hanging out. And I was like, I can't wait, And then I got to play in care homes, and I would see, again, some people are living beautiful lives and it's great and they've got great friends. And then somebody is, more often than not, there's a few who are, suffering dementia. They need to be in a care home because they can't care for themselves anymore, and for whatever reason. And it's a journey we're all on. We're all going to end up, older one day, and our bodies won't do what they do today. And that I can accept that. But there was part of me that went like, oh yeah, wait a second. There's a bunch of people here that are in a much worse state than I think I hope to be when I'm 85 years old, right? And then I started thinking, and again, this is just a theory. It's not science, but I wonder sometimes if people who have not lived the life of passion that they wish they could have lived look back at 80 and then realize, I missed it. I missed it. I feel like there is this window where you like have the opportunity to live the life you want, and the window just slowly closes. And I, it might be a 70-year window that it's slowly closing, but I feel like, okay, wait a second. How do I tap into that every day where it's like, I'm literally doing what I'm supposed to be doing today? And so for me, like you say, to wake up every day and be excited to pursue the thing that you're doing, that's me. Honestly, for the last 15 years, I have no problem getting up. I'm excited to get up and chase the thing that I'm chasing. And I want to venture to guess that that's one of the keys to being a happier older person, is that you chase the things that you were passionate about. And I think for me, and for anybody out there who's listening too, is just that I would say, like, sometimes you have to do the thing. You have to do the 9 to 5 to do it. You have to just, if that's what you signed up for, and you just do it. But I hope that within the confines of the 24-hour day of your life, that you can find the thing that you're also passionate about. Maybe it's your job, but maybe not. And I think for me, I've been blessed to be able to chase my career. That is something I'm also very passionate about, and it's why I wake up every day.
So somebody starting out now, what's something that you would tell them as they're coming into the music industry now?
I mean, I get asked that question all the time. Like, what advice would you have for a young person coming in? One of my mantras that I think has made me the type of person I am, and I like to think I'm likable and people appreciate, what I bring to the table and my energy when I walk in a room, is that nobody owes you anything. Like, nobody owes me anything. Nobody has to come to my shows. Nobody has to buy my music. Nobody has to listen to it or stream it, whatever. Everything is a gift. And when you see it that way, and when you truly believe it that way, then ego doesn't play into it, and this jadedness that you hear about people getting. As you get older, I gotta honestly say I've wrestled with that a little bit, because there is an element of like, wow, why not me? And then immediately my brain goes, oh, wait a second, you're not owed that. And it's like, oh yeah, right. Remember your roots. Remember why you think this. So that's a big one for me. Is recognizing that nobody owes you anything. And that, I think, was key to my dancing in the world of music gracefully. Was that everything is a gift.
It's almost like entitlement.
Yeah, exactly. If you come in with this, and I know some entitled musicians that come with that energy, and it's like it's hard to be around, to be honest. And they might be hugely successful and have built a fine career, but that's not the kind of energy that draws me in. That's for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on that you cannot control, and I'm not paraphrasing, or I am paraphrasing. you can't control the results.
Right.
All you can control is your actions, right? On what you do and how you do it, but you don't control the results. I think that's something very big that will fight entitlement to the most, right?
Yes.
I'm doing all this work.
Yeah.
I deserve this, right?
Totally.
That's a big one.
Yeah. It's a big message I teach my kids all the time. It's like, control what you can and let go of what you can't. I remember somebody said, worry is a big one for all of us, right? We always got things to worry about. And a friend of mine shared a quote with me one time. It wasn't his. I don't even know where the quote came from, but it was, worry is the interest you pay on things that haven't happened yet. And I was like, say that again. And he, worry is the interest that you pay on things that haven't happened yet. And I was like, oh man, I got to stop paying interest, And so worry is a part of all of our psyche. It's there. But for me, it's like, just control what I can and let go of what I can't. And I've really been trying to make that part of my psyche every day of just like, and my kids too, right? Like just, you can't always control the outcome. All you can do is just control what you can and let go what you can't. I think that's such a great mantra to live by.
Yeah. Well, the worry and anxiety are in the future, and then, blame, shame, regret, all that is in the past.
Yeah.
And we hear a lot about just like focus on what you can and live in the present and make
especially
decisions.
As parents, I find like being a parent has heightened that sense in me to just be here, be right now. And I gotta say, like, I cherish my moments with my kids. Like, even when they make me mad, like I try to get back to the place. It's like, wait a second, they're little, they're not meaning to be jerks, and maybe they are sometimes, but
it's just kids. Yeah.
But like, just cherishing the moments you have, and this idea of accomplishing a to-do list for me is a big one. Getting it all done. And it's like, but wait a second, tomorrow I have a whole new slew of to-dos. So just do the best I can and then let go of the things that I can't control. That's a big one for me. Yeah.
You seem very, not only aware of yourself, but also just, mindful. Do you meditate? Is that something that you, you really
I'm a spiritual guy for sure. I think, I believe in a creator, and I think for me, there's every day there's this element of communion with the divine that I try to tap into, that I feel like I try to breathe in that in all aspects of my life, everywhere I go. And I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about this, and I just said, I really try to have that connection to something beyond me, bigger than all of us, all the time. I don't always succeed. I think sometimes I get brought down to earth again. It's like, oh yeah, right. Yeah. That person made me mad, cutting me off in traffic or whatever. But then again, it's like quickly trying to get back to that place of like, oh no, I want to be elevated beyond this way of thinking. And so, I wake up every day, I stretch, I do, some sort of, in the midst of my stretches, I'm doing deep breathing exercises. And I think within that, there's psychologically, I'm trying to speak good things into my heart and my mind and my body and into my day that I can then hopefully shine on my kids and shine on my partner, and just really, try to embody that in all, it all, to me, it all comes down to love. Like if I can, wherever I'm at, wherever I'm operating, that if my presence brings more love into a space, then that's to me, that feels like a beautiful life. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny you say that. I once asked my wife when I first met her what she thought her purpose was. And me, who's, been on this, I think I had a bit of an awakening at 30 when my life kind of wasn't where I thought it was going to be. And it was kind of falling apart and divorce. And so my current wife, when I first met her, and she said, is to spread love in the world. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty general.
Yeah.
But then I actually saw the practical application of it over and over and over, when every person that she met always leaves happier, always is smiling, always, like she's just, like, that's just who she is. And I don't necessarily remember the exact time that it clicked, but I was like, it just blown away.
It can be a thing, yeah.
Like, wow, that is like, that is it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, I find
How long you guys been married now?
6 years now.
Okay.
Yep.
And you got a little girl?
I got two with her, and then my 10-year-old is with my ex. But I do have now I've got two boys.
Okay.
And one 4-year-old girl.
Okay.
And that 4-year-old girl,
dude.
Wow. I was not prepared. I come from a family of boys.
Yeah.
I got 14 boy cousins.
Yeah.
One girl cousin. So I did not realize the feels and all the spectrums of emotions. Holy Moses. She will go from 1 to 1,000 and then back down to 0 and just look and Dada?
Yeah.
Like, hey, daddy, can I,
it's funny. So I got a boy, girl, boy. So and I grew up in a house of brothers. So I got 3 brothers. And so my boys they're fun, they're playful, they're goofy. And there's moments of like sweetness that we have with them that was just like you get the soft parts of them and it's great. But Stella, so Oscar's like this ball of energy. My 11-year-old, he's just like constantly like he's very high energy, always wants to party, always wants to like jump off stuff. And then my little guy, he's kind of somewhere in between. He's kind of like he can be chill, but he also loves having a good time, and he loves being the laughing stock of the whatever. Like he wants to get everybody laughing, right? My daughter, I say she's like the butterfly. When she comes in the room, everybody's like, "Oh, look, the butterfly!" Right? Yeah. That's what she's like. She walks into the room, and again, it's that element of like, from at least through my eyes, I see her as this presence that walks in, and immediately everything feels a bit sweeter, it's funny how kids can do that, like, and especially for us guys, like a daughter is, I think a daughter helps a man clearly get more in touch with his feminine side and understand that the men maybe we were told to be is not the men we want. We would want our daughters to be with, obviously, right? We grew up in a time, I think, when the rugged tough man was the thing, and our fathers. I can't speak for you, but I know my dad was like, you have to be tough, you have to be strong, you suck it up, right? And I would. That's a whole generation of men raising kids like that. Whereas as I'm growing up now, and I realize, I think it takes a stronger man to be vulnerable and be soft and and it doesn't have to be tough. And I think, again, for me, having a daughter has taught me that a little bit more too.
Yeah. When I, my first foray into that was, I think I read the book, The Way of the Superior Man. And it talks about the male the feminine and the masculine energies. And, when you're listening about the differences between the two and the dance and the yin and the yang that they play, we all have it inside of us. Guys like Dr. Jordan Peterson are talking about, become, lethal as a man and then learn how to control it. Yeah, right. There's definitely the healthy and the unhealthy ways for all of this, but yeah, it's getting in touch with it and then just reminding myself a lot about who my daughter is and how to connect with her and what's the actual, and my wife helps a lot. Right. Yeah. My wife helps a lot.
Yeah. I was going to say it's my bros and brews gang that we get together. So we every year, last 4 years, we get together for this guys weekend thing in honor of one of our late brothers. He passed away a couple years ago. It's called Daryl Fest. Okay. And I said I couldn't make it this year. I ended up I was out of town for something, and it was the first year I couldn't make it. And I said, hey, how was it? And it was awesome and fun. And the guys just get together, drink beer, sit around fires, and we just hang out and talk about our fallen brothers. And I said, you guys have any good heart to hearts? And he's like, well, you weren't there, so not as many. And I was like, oh dang, like I guess
I let everyone down.
It is. It kind of bummed me out because come on, guys, you can still have heart to hearts and love each other that way. And I think that's one of the constructs that I think the current generation man is trying to change. I think a lot of those we can be soft with each other and we can hold each other and that kind of idea. I think that can be a much more image of the way a good brotherhood and friendship can be. It doesn't have to be like you toughen up. And I think, like you said, there's two ways to operate, and I think you can kind of live in both.
Well, I think that's also part of your authentic side too, is that anyone who's not willing to not just be vulnerable, but share and empathize and listen and connect over even pain, especially.
Yeah.
That's not a human, right? And so if someone's not doing that, one, they either don't want to, or two, there's a bit of insecurity there.
There's a reflection of what they're not dealing with, maybe within themselves.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What we see in the world is completely a reflection of how we feel about ourselves.
Totally, yeah.
So talking about kids, what are some of the values that are important to you in your life and that you have known about that you're trying to teach to your kids?
I mean, like it's a big one is being kind. Obviously, there's like biblically there's these the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And we say these prayers sometimes as a family, and we ask for all of these fruits, that we can tap into. And so that, I mean, not to get too scriptural, but those are big things for us, is like, how do we, embody that in our lives? And so the biggest thing is for us is just like love our kids to the fullest extent. And, I think there's a lot of school of thoughts about raising kids certain ways. And for us, it's just like, just be there, just love them. I think for me is let them be whoever they are. I don't want to put them in a box to who I think they should be. I want to fully and allow them to grow up to be fully who they are, so that I don't want them to look back going, you made me want to be this type of way,
right?
And you forced me to live this type of way. We're in a generation now where gender fluidity and people sort of identifying who they are, and probably having grown up feeling not sure of who they were because they were told to be a certain way. For us, we're raising our kids to we talk about boys being boys, girls being girls, and I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but for us, we're really just like, but at the end of the day, we want you to be fully yourself.
Right.
So that's a big one for us, is just like letting our kids be who they are and supporting that as best we can. And, it'd be interesting to see how these conversations will be as they become, young adults, and hopefully they'll feel like I hope that they say this, that we always supported them in whoever they were or whatever they were interested in along the way. And that's my hope. Yeah.
What is something, or is there anything that you're looking forward to? Any projects we're working on?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big season for me right now. I mean, again, full disclosure, the label that I'm with, going through some big changes, some big shifts, which is exciting, but it puts a big question mark in terms of my partnership with them. So I'm excited for the label. I'm excited for me, but I don't know for sure what it's going to look like in a year from now or so. I got a music project that I'm working on, a new album, kind of a conceptual thing. Working title right now is called Broken Record.
Okay.
And I think for me, it's a little more of our team keeps saying it's getting back to the heart of Don Amero. I think I've spent the last 5 or 6 years with a country record label whose main goal is get you broken at radio, get you success at radio. It's not really working. Like, it's been okay. I've had some success at radio, but it's not been awesome. It's been a mild success. So it's been okay. And so it's caused us to look back and go, what are we not doing here? And I've constantly said, there's this batch of songs that I feel is really my heart, really what I want to share. I think really what we're talking about is just what I think could really connect with an audience. And I think that's a big piece that's been missing for the last few years of chasing down the next single. And a lot of the songs that have gone out to radio haven't been mine. Whereas I think we're kind of going, wait a second, we're missing a piece here. And I think the piece is the Don Amero story that I'm not sharing with my music. So I'm excited to get back to that. I think that's a big one. We're probably about a year and a half before that fully comes to life and we're able to share it. But that's sort of at the doorstep of what I'm looking at right now. And I just came from the UK. I was in the UK a couple weeks ago doing a tour. I'm likely going to be back there early in the new year, and then Australia is in our sights as well. And
Crazy.
so, and it sounds really grandiose, and it is. It's amazing to go do that. But we played small little clubs, like 50, 60 people, and people showed up. Like we were playing to packed houses. It was incredible. So the label and their partners in these places it clearly works, and so we're just sort of navigating that a bit, and it's exciting to be thinking more internationally than I ever have before. So it's a big leap for me, but so excited about all those things.
Do you find that the way that if you kind of search deep inside yourself and describe the way, not the genre, because that it's pretty confining, but if someone or the perception of what Don Amero is as say a country singer or a folk singer or a country folk singer, or do you think that jives with what's out there?
Yeah, I mean, like anytime somebody comes, what kind of music do you do? I say, oh, roots, country, pop, soul. Like it's literally all in there.
Yep.
And it's all influenced, me and what I am as a performer. So it's, but at the same time, like I hate genre, because I feel like when you say I'm this, people expect only that. And so for me, I feel like I'm just wanting to do things that I love, like perform songs that I love. One of them might be an R&B song. Next one will be a country song. Next one will be a soul song. Next one will be a pop song. Like for me, it's like just chase the things that are inspiring you.
That's great.
And controlling what I can and letting go of whatever I can't. Right. Yeah. And the community might be like, what the heck's going on with Don Amero? He just did a country song. Now he's doing a pop song, and he's got a hip hop guy on there. So it's like, I'm just chasing inspiration and doing what I love. And I think along the way, it's like, I'm content with that. I'm okay with
if it connects, it connects. If it doesn't, I still like it.
Yeah. And not only that, like if you look at where music's at nowadays, I think most artists are exploring all kinds of sounds and genre, and it's not tied to one thing. And I think the truth of it is that I hope, speaking, that Don Amero is a genre. Like it's like, oh, you sound like Don Amero.
Yeah.
Right? Not like this or that or that or that. It's like, oh, you're doing your own thing and you bring your own flavor. And it's all of these influences that are feeding that. And I guess for me, it's just staying authentic to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you knew you were coming here today. Is there anything that I should have asked you that you've been, really that's close to you or close to your heart that I should have asked you but didn't?
No, we covered some pretty big ground already. This is pretty in depth.
We really did. Yeah.
No, I mean, I like, you got a proud Winnipegger in here who loves where he's from. And I think, as I said earlier, you can have a fine, aspiring musicians. You can build a great career right here without having to leave this wonderful city, and I think I'm proud to be from here, and I'm proud that I always will, I can't determine fully what 20, 30 years down the road will look like. But Winnipeg will always be my home, and I'm glad I got my roots here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, how can people connect with you? How do they, and one thing I want to put is your children's book.
Yeah.
Where can people get that somewhere?
Yeah. So it's called Roots of Love. These Roots of Love is the book. So if you go to rootsoflove.ca.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
You can order the book there if you're interested.
So we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
As well as,
and if you're looking for what I'm up to, donamero.ca is
Beautiful.
The easiest way to get you. It's the website, but it's got all the links to Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff.
All your favorite
Am I on
stuff.
Twitter?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm on Twitter anymore. X?
What's
it called? Yeah. I probably haven't posted there in a long time, so don't worry about that. But
that's fair.
But all the other places are all linked in the website. So
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you taking the time and coming to share. And it was all that I thought it was going to be and more. You're very well spoken. I love how aware you are and connected you are, and that's fantastic to see.
Oh, so pleasure's mine, man. Thank you.
I've known your name and thought about you ever since I saw your concert. So that means something to me, and you're doing something right.
Cool. Well, what a pleasure, man. Thank you for this long interview. And it was you oftentimes you get these chats with the media or whatever, you're sitting down and it's like condensed 10-minute, thing. So it's nice to be able to sit down and relax and actually have a good in-depth conversation with somebody.
Yeah,
so appreciate
this was great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can come back anytime, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's next.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Thanks.